Now, more than a week after being deposed, Syria's ousted president, Bashir al-Assad, has broken his silence about his fall from power. In a written statement posted on social media, Assad says he never planned to abandon his country as rebel forces closed in on Damascus. He claims he initially moved to a Russian base in western Syria to continue fighting, but says Russia then evacuated him after the base came under attack. He also denounced Syria's new leaders as terrorists. And we can get more on this from Fawaz, Gerges, Professor of Middle Eastern Politics and International Relations at the London School of Economics. Welcome back to DW. Thank you for your time today. So it seems Assad has broken his silence after fleeing Syria. Can I ask you, do you believe that this message on Telegram and Facebook is actually from Assad? And if it is, why is he speaking out now?
We don't know whether it's genuine or not. This is the first qualification I would really tell your viewers. But it seems to be authentic because that's Bashar al-Assad. In the sense, the statement itself was designed to rationalize and justify his running away in the thick of the night. Because the Russians made it very clear it was Assad's decision to go to exile. What he is saying, in particular, this message is for his followers, for his supporters, who are enraged that Assad left the country, left the army, left his own brother, basically, who is in charge of the special operation forces, and basically run away with his own family. So, yeah, I believe it because this is all about rationalization and justification. He's saying that the Russians impressed on him the need to leave Syria. The reality is, my simple response to Bashar al-Assad is that, where were you when the rebels attacked Idlib and Aleppo and Hama? He was missing in action. He never stood up and addressed his people. He never led his soldiers. He never fought back. But rather what happened, less than 2 weeks, he packed his luggage and left, the country, after 24 years of brutality and bringing Syria down on everyone's head, including the majority of the Syrian people.
You mentioned that his brother is still there. Do the Assads still exercise any influence in Syria? I mean, where are their supporters right now? Basically,
broken. His supporters are angry. His supporters are terrified about the future because they defended the regime for many, many years. More than 100,000 Syrian soldiers were killed between 2011 and 2024, more than 100,000. So you could imagine the loss, the enormity of the loss and suffering of his followers, of his social support. His brother, by the way, left separately in a helicopter to Iraq and then to Iran. But it tells you a great deal that the family, the brother and other family members were dispersed in many parts to Lebanon, to Iraq, to Iran, while he went to exile, his favorite country in Russia. But the reality is Bashar al-Assad did not only let all his people down, he let his own family, his own followers, his own supporters. And the statement itself is designed to say, look, I did not run away. I was basically forced to leave Syria by the Russians, and we know that was not true at all.
What does Assad's future likely look like? I mean, is he likely to face prosecution?
Depends on the Russian President Putin, because President Putin basically personally provided him with asylum in Russia. But the reality is Putin will not be with us for many years. And you have most of the world wants Bashar al-Assad to face justice, in particular the Syrians. I mean, you have 400,000 Syrians who have been killed, 500,000 injured. You have 50,000 Syrians who disappeared. And you've seen the prisons. I mean, the pain, the suffering, the torture. So, yeah, I think for now he lives in exile under the protection of President Putin. but who knows what the future holds for him. I could easily imagine a scenario where really standing before the International Court of Justice, facing crimes against humanity and war crimes against the Syrian people.
Fawaz Gerges from the London School of Economics. Thank you so much for your analysis. We really appreciate it.
Well, let's cross over to Damascus now, where DW correspondent Ibrahim is standing by for us. Lovely to see you. So it appears that Bashar al-Assad has broken his silence after several days and after fleeing Syria. Does this message appear to be real?
So this message did appear on Telegram and Facebook accounts that have been thus far controlled by the Syrian presidency, or I should say the former Syrian presidency. But of course, in the midst of this chaos, it's really difficult to tell who is actually in control of these social media accounts, and whether it was actually Bashar al-Assad himself who sort of put a pen and paper together and wrote this down. So it comes from accounts that have been associated with the presidency, but there's no way to tell for sure if this is coming from the former president's mouth directly, especially that we've essentially not heard from him since his removal or departure, or whatever you want to call it, over a week ago.
Yeah, and actually tell us a little bit more about that, because Assad claims that Russia forced him to abandon the country, right?
Right. The letter is quite long, and essentially what Bashar al-Assad, if he is indeed the real author of this letter, tries to do in this letter is put a lot of blame outside of himself and sort of delegate a lot of the agency that he had as the ruler of Syria away from the actions or the sequence of events that have happened, that have unfolded last week, and essentially the 2 weeks before that led to his ouster. So there's a lot of blaming, a lot of I did my best, I stood my ground for as long as I could, and essentially that what happened leading to his departure was not his fault. And this is to be expected. I think nobody was really expecting an apologetic letter or an apologetic statement, taking any kind of blame for what has happened from the former president. So it's been met with quite a bit of, I would say, laughter and humor here on the streets of Damascus.
All right, so to say, or even ask, does he actually still exercise any influence in Syria, or are supporters still there? Have you, what are you seeing there on the ground, Aya? We don't have a huge amount of time, unfortunately, but if you could tell us that would be great.
Sure. I mean, his supporters have so far been silent, I think out of fear of retribution and so on. But I think even among his supporters, there's just a lot of disappointment from what the former president has done. I mean, he's basically left them to fend for themselves. And so you can imagine what's going through the heads of many of his lifelong supporters. But so far, there's a lot of, peace and quiet here on the ground, and they seem to be left alone. I mean, if his supporters are here, they've certainly been quiet so far, I think.
That's great, Aya, and great to see you in Damascus. DW correspondent Aya Ibrahim.